It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 446. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey.
So we didn't record last week because we were down a bunch of people. So sorry about that. I guess big thing that I have been doing this week is the launch of a new Path of Exile league, the Trials of the Ancestor. And
there sure are some trials.
Yeah. Okay. So I have done the league mechanic. Has anyone done the league mechanic?
I've
done it
failed
once.
miserably once and succeeded once.
Yeah, that.
Did it once.
Yeah, it is going to be entertaining, but right now I'm mostly just saving a bunch of coins for later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So essentially, once or twice sometimes per zone, you get a silver coin to drop. And the silver coin teleports you to the realm of the dead, essentially. And you get to go hang out with all the Karui. I don't know that they're gods.
Sort of like representatives of the
different tribes.
Of the different tribes, yeah.
Like
basically, this is a waiting room for them, so that the god of the dead set up, having predicted the slumber of the gods, so that there would be a place for them to go, so that their souls wouldn't just be lost forever. But they need something to keep them busy, so they don't get bored waiting for the end of time.
Well, and right now they're throwing a party because, when the gods woke up, the god of the dead woke up too, and is now talking to them again. So yeah, that was interesting. When we killed the beast, it had all kinds of far-reaching ramifications. Some of them are delightful. Calm is just as big of an asshole as you expect him to be.
I was gonna say,
I mean, yeah, I believe it.
To be fair, he got a really raw deal. Not entirely his fault, just mostly his fault.
So I don't know what to like. Yes, it's an auto battler, but it also kind of reminds me of like what it feels like to play League of Legends with bots. That's really what it reminds me of, because you're the star player on that team, and you're the one who's going to do most of the murder. But you have some helpers that
like Dynasty Warriors, but they left out the part where there are a bunch of the completely trash enemies in between.
Yeah. So you're basically building a team of supports to help you succeed, and also I feel like I don't know how you're supposed to know how to take down a totem, but I fumbled my way into it the first time.
They like.
I mean, they tell you to channel
They tell me to channel it, but I didn't know how to channel it. I was looking for an action button.
Yeah, I was like, action button, right click, left click. Oh, left click and
left
hold.
Because I kept clicking on it and it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, I clicked on it so many times, and then I finally realized that, left click and hold.
Really glad that Belle just told me what to do, because I would have been in there for an hour getting angry and not figuring it out.
That's the thing. I was sitting there as righteous fire trying to figure this out, so it's not like they could beat me. Like I was completely out of flask charges because I was up against the tribe that drains all your flask charges, jackasses. But that didn't really matter. So yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, like I had killed enough that their respawn time was really long, and I was trying to figure out how to deal with their totems, and then I finally start taking them out, and then I'll kill another round and then take another one out, and I never could get my attackers to actually go after the stupid totems.
I did see one of my dudes helping me channel at one point, and it like doubled, how fast it broke. But yeah, it was like
just
literally
as good
once.
at you at channeling totems, just not as good at you at fighting enemies. The advice I've seen is put people in the flanker positions. They attack actually much better.
Yeah, that's what I've heard
sense.
too after the fact. I went in blind and did not
Me too.
read anything about this. I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yep. I mean, there's plenty of time to read somebody's explanation.
Sure.
There's only one chance to go in blind and flail around.
But like, it was actually pretty fun. Like, it was.
Yeah.
It's shockingly good. I kind of hope that this becomes a permanent thing. Like, it kind of reminds me of like I said, it reminded me of playing League of Legends with bots. Except for I had some control over what the bots did.
Yeah, like
Not
you get
a
to select
ton,
which
but
ones
some.
and what role to put them in and all that. And you can give them relics to give them abilities.
And you can run around with cute turtle friends.
Yeah.
So supposedly what I've heard after the fact, like, so I did this and then I did some research. After you have finished a tournament, so the points that you're gaining only last for the current tournament you're playing.
Oh, that's good to know.
So your like when you buy additional forces and stuff, like that won't stick around necessarily forever.
That's
However,
really useful information.
That's yes.
Yeah. So apparently when you finish a tournament, you are given a certain number of reinforcements for the next round based on what you had originally. Like, so it won't be all of them, but like if you won the tournament, you'll keep a bunch of them. And if you lost, it depends on how far you made it, how many you keep into the next round. So like, I think favor sticks around, but
favors don't stick around.
Well, so I thought the ones that you're earning for Navali stuck around, but the ones that you're earning with each individual faction doesn't.
Oh, maybe. I didn't know until I actually looked it up yesterday. Navali used to be the Prophecy NPC.
Yes, yeah, and the silver coins were originally from Prophecy.
Ah.
Because like I streamed briefly, and somebody was freaking out that I got a silver coin drop, and I didn't know what that meant. But like I knew it was the new league mechanic, but
is this Bell luck?
No. There's one that drops in every zone, basically.
Yeah.
But they haven't been able to drop in the games basically since we started playing again.
Yeah. Bell luck happened though.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was other Bell luck. Let's not skip over that.
Like one of the first weapons that I got was a magic quality green bow that carried me for a very long ways.
Nice.
Like I got my first chaos orb in Act 2. So yeah, no, I've had some luck.
I didn't get my first one until Act 5.
Yeah, I also got a chaos orb in Act 2, so I don't know if maybe they're just more likely to drop earlier. I don't know.
I've got a little over 20 of them so far.
1. Just not. I usually don't see them until I hit the second half of the game.
I just entered Act 4, and one just dropped like just now, and I think I'm up to like 5 total. So,
I mean, I'm in Act 6. I think I have 4 of them, which is fine. I don't actually need them for currency because I'm trying out Soul Self-Found this league.
Oh,
you can use them for
crafting and map device stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't need to like worry about hoarding them for buying stuff.
I mean, I did already trade in my first 2 for Aquil Rain.
I'm trying to go as solo Southbound as I can, but also I want to be able to sell stuff. So I'm in trade league, but
works.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to be able to take stuff out of the guild bank.
Yeah.
See, I have this issue where in my head I get really angry because I feel like to be successful at this game, I have to engage with trading, and I hate trading. And so I end up going through Bell, and it's very stupid, and I dislike it, and my brain gets mad. So this league, I decided I'm just going to go solo self-found. And in fact, it has quieted my angry brain. So now I can't trade, and I'm just on my own, and I'm going to see what I can do. And I haven't gotten through the campaign yet, so whatever, but it's fine.
Yeah, it seems like a good solution.
This is technically the second time in rapid succession I've played this character. I did a test run before the league started, and that one I also tried not to lean upon anything that I had already gathered in my vaults. So I was able to craft a functional character that could get to maps without, much in the way of I had crafting resources, so I crafted some stuff, but
Well, and I think that's going to be the fun thing for me about this is that I've messed with crafting, but I haven't bothered to take the time to get really deep into it. And now I have an excuse to really dig into it. And I'm looking forward to that.
And one of the really nice things about the build that you're playing is one of the better bows is pretty deterministic. You just have to have some divines to do it.
The thing about, I'm potentially interested in trying a solo self-found character. One of the things is that a bunch of the crafting things require specific resources from specific places, which means you do need to actually do the content it gives them rather than doing other content and trading for them.
Yeah.
The big one is fossils.
Yeah.
But you can get fossils from Heist or Legion if you don't like Delve.
I mean, that's the
or
thing.
Ritual.
There's a bunch of ways to get things. Also, I mean, Delve is great. But
I do like Delve.
Delve is great.
There are a lot of people who do not like Delve at all, not a little bit.
Those people are wrong.
I mean, the same is also true of Heist.
I get frustrated with Heist, not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm better at it than others, but Delve I pretty much always enjoy.
Well, the thing with Heist is if you're on a very high survival character, it is pretty easy. It's just the random one-shots that get annoying in Heist if you're not on the most tanky character.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it as long as I'm staying away from doors that are just opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a real bad problem with shotgunning you if you stand in front of a door.
I've also gotten over my desire to stand around and try to murder everything and just I am not that tanky. I am just going to run, and that is okay. Plus, my bags are full.
The real reason you leave.
Right?
Well, and in truth, though, a EA champion can be as tanky as, almost an RF jug. Mine was pretty tanky last league.
Yeah, I think it'll be more tanky than it's already more tanky than I'm used to. The other stuff that I tend to play is not nearly so tanky, and but also playing SSF, I don't know how optimized I'm going to be able to get, so
Right.
won't be as tanky as I could be.
I'm playing the first glass cannon build I've ever played in a league start. This will be interesting. Realistically, I kind of set expectations, and if I can get up through yellow maps, I'm probably happy. And I know, I made 8 different characters, and to various, 7 of them I made it all the way to maps and did red maps on them. So I know I'm going to play more than one character, and my hope is, since I'm trying to craft my own stuff, this will at least let me do early maps and farm essences, because essences are amazing for crafting. And you don't really need to go very deep into maps to farm a lot of essences.
True. If you really want to farm essences specifically, it's best done in white maps.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, if you're gonna do it, you might as well also do beasts, because all the beasts everybody wants drops in white maps.
We'll see if that's still true this league.
The split beast and the mirror beast both drop in white maps.
Well, okay, the mirror beast is the most useful one.
So we'll see. That's probably the direction I'm going to go. But the problem is there's a lot of things in the Atlas tree that I really like. I really like domination shrines. I really like strong boxes, and I'll have minimal points at first. The 7th gate intrigues me.
That's my problem is I want to do all the things in the Atlas. I want to do betrayal, and I want to make pyramids, and I want to do heists. I want to do delve. And I need to specialize at least a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to be weird because, like, last league, I leaned heavily on delve because delve is basically like a currency printing machine. And I won't have that at least at the start. So it's going to be interesting.
No, you'll have to replace that with a map blasting.
I will have to. That's what I'm hoping is by forcing myself to play a different type of character. I'm gonna get to do all the leagues that I ignored largely. So like I'll do Legion and I'll do, Blight even.
I'm not sure you can convince me to do Blight.
Like if you can explode entire screens, Blight's kind of trivial at that point.
Fair.
You say that. I had a character 2 leagues ago that could explode entire screens, and some of those Blight monsters were just big bags of hit points.
Yeah.
I remember doing Blight and having trouble with my character that could trivially hit enemies off screen.
I think the new Blight Keystone is hilarious, which triples tower damage and cuts your damage by 75%. So it's actually just tower defense.
Yeah, that would be fun. I would be into that.
That's the cool thing about this league is they added a bunch of passives that like change the way a lot of these mechanics work. So Delirium, the Delirium fog where you have to like run ahead of the fog. Now Delirium just never ends on your map. But it doesn't drop any of the Delirium orbs.
But I don't care about that.
Right. Yeah, like that's fine. Like you choose when to end it and you get all the rewards from it.
I will say
rewards. Yeah,
this is going to be real dangerous for people who don't realize that Delirium scales with distance from the mirror.
Yeah.
So if you have a linear map and the map boss is at the end, maybe you want to end it before you get there. I don't know. There's a bunch that I think will be fun to try out. That is one of them I'd like to give a shot.
I really want to try out the expedition, the YOLO expedition. Because basically,
like one big bomb.
That one strikes fear into my heart.
It just gives you one giant bomb, and you got to deal with whatever happens.
That one absolutely just strikes fear into my heart.
Yeah, I've had enough really bad times when I can place the bombs.
Yeah.
I mean, in my final form, I will be dealing physical and all the elemental damages at once. So, in theory, I can deal with some of the invulnerabilities. I'm hoping.
Someone called it like a spicy strongbox, but
it's way worse than a strongbox.
It's normally the monsters aren't affected by all of the things, just the ones that occurred before they blew up. This is going to cause them all to be affected by all of the things, and it's really going to be an issue. I look forward to the various YouTube videos of people's hardcore deaths to trying this.
Trying to think of some of the other ones. There were a bunch of keystones that just changed drastically what things did.
There's the Legion one that removes the timer. There's the Torment one that causes the ghosts to possess you and not rare monsters, which also seems hilarious.
Okay, I gotta say, I greatly approve of the changes to Torment. Because often I would just kill things before I even knew they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I've gotten to actually interact with the Torment quite a bit. And it takes a while for the thing to run around and actually, possess things and touch things. And
yeah, the ghosts seem much, much faster when they spawn. So they actually get to monsters that they can possess.
Well, and they're also, pseudo-invulnerable when they first spawn. So that they become more killable the longer they're out. So you can't just snipe them from across the map and they're dead. And when you let one run amok, it really is a lot of loot.
So is there one of those keystones for incursions?
There is not. It's only for the 10 things you can block.
Okay.
I was hoping they would give us inverse incursions as a keystone, because those are the best things ever.
No, I think you still got to use the Atlas memory for that.
Yeah.
There was a lot said about the lack of changes in the patch notes.
Yeah.
But they added a bunch of support gems, and some of them are enabling interesting things.
So, I was saying this before the show, I have never played with Vengeance Cascade when it was still a thing, but my goodness, the watered down version is amazing. So Vengeance Cascade was a node that basically was like all projectiles return. And generally speaking, they over return. So they go through you and continue sailing past you. And they added, they took away Vengeance Cascade as what it did for an anoint. Because it was like only available as an anoint. It didn't actually exist on the tree. And it was like, I think it was like a 2 gold oil anoint. So it was ungodly expensive.
Yikes.
So what they did instead is they put a gem in called return projectile support or something like that. So you have to give up a gem in your support chain, and the returning projectiles I think only deal 70% of the damage or something like that, or deal.
It's even less than that. They deal like 40% damage.
Yeah, whatever. But it doesn't really matter because
it's still almost
amazing.
One of the best gems you could be running in a projectile build.
So just for pure clear, like your arrows are going all over the place. And a lot of times with Lightning Arrow, which is what I'm playing, there are mobs where maybe the first hit doesn't kill them, but it almost kills them. And with this, it absolutely kills them. Just like, because the arrow bounces back through and takes them out and life's good. And the Val version of Lightning Arrow is just nonsense with the returning arrows, because it already is kind of just a zigzagging arrow, but then it makes it zigzag again in the opposite direction. The trauma support is delightfully weird, and I hope there are some interesting builds that come out of it. That basically is the thing that Bone Shatter does, but it allows you to turn other abilities into Bone Shatter.
Trauma is a weird mechanic that was just on Bone Shatter before. It causes you to take damage when you use a skill, but get a stack, which causes you to take more damage, but make the skill do more damage. And so they added this as a support gem that you can apply to skills that do not already cause trauma, so you can't double stack on Bone Shatter. But people are experimenting with other melee skills because, hey, that's a thing you can do.
Okay, so you said earlier today that Flamewood was bugged. Bugged in a good way or bugged in a bad way?
Some people were saying its hit chance was wildly subpar.
Okay. So one of the things that came out of the Crucible League is that a lot of totem builds have a ton of health, and if you can somehow latch onto that to deal damage, you can deal a lot of damage. And Flamewood Totem is attempting to do that as a support for other totems.
We'll see how well this works. It is apparently difficult to get enemies to hit your totems unless you're a chieftain, because the totem taunt node totem taunt mastery went away last week. So your options are the totem that taunts, or be a chieftain and have all of your totems taunt.
I mean, they took away some of the chieftain totem toys, so maybe they gave them a different one.
Chieftain is so weird at the moment. It is a little lacking in identity, as opposed to Guardian, which is the party support premier, but also maybe you like minions. That's like a party, right?
Minions are always a party.
Guardian right now kind of reminds me of that Lotro class that has the helpers. Captain, yes. I remember Dark Age of Camelot had a class like that too, where you had like
a zillion temporary.
Yeah.
What a weird class that was.
I don't know, but like there were like little Lurricane minions and like I don't remember what it was called.
Wasn't the Magician, that was EverQuest.
Yeah, a friend of mine played it, but I don't remember what it was. Because like I played a champion and he played whatever the hell that thing was. And then another friend was dual boxing a warrior and a bard.
They're just
like all the minions did slightly different things, so you were basically like a one-person party.
Yeah, it was super weird.
I think the changes to Guardian make it fit in that identity, and also if you are actually playing with other people, it may also make a really good aura bot.
Yeah, and I mean Guardian was already popular amongst aura bots, so
yes, now it's going to be it. I don't know if it's going to eclipse Scion, probably not, but it's still interesting to see.
I don't know, like a lot of the gnashing of teeth about the lack of balance changes I found kind of weird, just because like if you look at the stats for what's being played or what was being played in Crucible, it was one of the most diverse leagues. There were lots of different viable builds that got all the way through the content.
There were more builds than usual at the top end, but I think what people really wanted was buffs to some of the builds. Some of the abilities nobody uses.
Right. And I agree. I mean,
but also I think some of those abilities are perfectly fine. So nobody's using them.
Right. Right.
But as we've talked about earlier, in order to get things to change, you need to make a lot of changes. Yeah, like just being as good is not enough to get people to start using something different. Right. It's got to be significantly better.
Mm-hmm. I was honestly worried that they would do something that would adversely affect Righteous Fire Juggernaut.
They still have not done that.
They have not.
It got indirectly nerfed, buffed, whatever, last patch, sort of. It wasn't really a nerf.
but one of the things that happened, like, due to some moves around on the tree, actually made it so that you can get like a node that you're gonna get anyway, like several nodes sooner. So
yes, like there's.
I mean, I think that was specifically Chieftain related, but it also helped Juggernaut. I don't know. I think the sandbox state of the game is probably as good as it's been since I've cared about the game.
I mean, I'm taking the opportunity to mess with something that is very much not meta. So we'll see how it goes. Back to two things that are not meta. Because while someone did make a build guide about Pyroclast mines, that person is not sticking with that build. They just made that build on the way to a different build. Also mines.
Yeah, didn't they pivot into Hexblast?
Yep.
Anyway, so what's going on in Genshin?
We get to go visit the Hydro Archon. I am so weirdly excited about this. I took probably more than a year hiatus from Genshin Impact, so I pretty much missed the release of all of the content related to Smeru, which is the area of the Dendro Archon. And spend the last, month or two at least, kind of catching up through all of that, all the storyline. There was a lot of it. And, finding all of the oculi, which, holy cow, I was looking it up, and like the first zone that came out when Genshin released, there were like 60 some of the oculi to find, and then there's like 100 and some in the second zone, and a little under 200 in the third, and in the Dendro area there's like almost 300.
Good grief.
Which is a lot. I mean, that area is broken up into several really big subzones that are probably each bigger than Mondstadt. So it scales, but it's a lot. So I was a little concerned what was going to happen when we go to a new zone. But the new zone, is just the first piece of the story and the first piece of the zone. So there's like 80 something. So it'll be manageable. The story seems like it's going to be really interesting, but of course I did the intro quest that let me get into Fontaine and then wandered off into the wilderness exploring and solving puzzles because that's how I roll. So I haven't really gotten very far in the story yet. Obviously love the theme because now, exploring stuff in Genshin Impact is a joy, and in the new area they have added underwater exploration, which, folks who know me know that I might enjoy that thing. It's beautiful, and they have an interesting take on it, where when you go underwater, you don't have any of your normal skills. You basically steal skills, like you sort of murder a crab and then you steal its ability and you can use that while you're underwater. It's like that works. It keeps things much more simple while you're underwater, which I think is really reasonable and lets you focus on swimming around and exploring. So that's been really good. I think my one complaint so far, and I'm still sort of reserving judgment a little bit, but with all of the zones, all the new stuff over the years that they have added to Genshin Impact, the characters that I have from really early in the game have been, just as consistently useful as the new ones. And I always really appreciate that, especially in a game that is sort of notorious for its gacha system. Knowing that like I have a stable of characters that works really well, and I've been building it out and adding new ones in over time. But if I wanted to make a party of characters that I've had from the first couple months of the game, it would still be functional. And the thing that makes me cautious about the new area is that they have added a new mechanic to some of the enemies where they basically get a sort of polarization. So on top of whatever element they have, they are also charged with either, I don't know what they're calling it, Pneuma is one of them, and whatever the opposite of that is. And so you get a significant benefit in combat if you hit them with the opposite charge. And only the new characters that you can get, pull on the banners that came out with the new zone, and the freebie that they do give you a freebie character, and the Traveler can turn into Hydro Traveler, so she gets it. So you basically have one of each for free, one of each charge. But beyond that, like none of the old characters interact with this mechanic at all. And so I haven't really needed it for fights so far. I haven't done all the boss fights and things, obviously, so not through the story. So I'm not sure if it becomes more necessary later, but it makes me really nervous that it's going to potentially make all of the characters that were released before this zone came out, if not necessarily obsolete, but subpar. And certainly there's already been some things in world exploration that have required it. So, like, thank goodness, you do technically have one of each for free, but also like I have a party that I like using for world exploration, and it doesn't involve a new character, new 4-star character that just got handed to me. So yeah, still figuring that out, still being a little cautious on that, but the zone is gorgeous, of course. The story is ridiculous nonsense, and I love it, just from what I've seen of it. And it's also extra entertaining because, each of the zones are sort of an analog of a real world country or region. And yeah, Fontaine is the land of justice. And by justice, they mean there's a big opera house, and that's where the trials are held. So anyway, it's been fun. I'm continuing to play through it. At some point, I will actually play through the story because that's also always good. But in the meantime, I'm just super enjoying having new content in that game that I'm actually mostly caught up on and can enjoy while it's fresh.
Okay, Kodra, what is CTC?
Cracking the Cryptic.
Okay.
So Cracking the Cryptic, mostly this was just a, hey, I got another puzzle featured on Cracking the Cryptic, which was really
cool.
exciting.
Yeah, I know it by the full name. I don't know it by the abbreviation.
And it's gotten me thinking more about setting Sudoku puzzles, and I did one, I think it's Maxwell Sudoku, named after a good friend of mine. And it was my attempt at getting a really, my first Sudoku I ever set was my hidden base Sudoku, where it was a killer Sudoku, and the cages had a base that you had to determine based on putting numbers into cells. And this was, I thought, a fun rule set idea, and I kind of wanted to build a puzzle to showcase off the rule set, but I will say it was not a very pretty puzzle. It was a lot of different, it was not aesthetically beautiful. And this puzzle I built, I really like. It's very minimalistic. There is very little in the grid. And the solve path is very symmetrical. And it's not too difficult, I would say. But I was excited to see them to solve it and use mostly the solve path I wanted them to use. But I need to figure out what my next Sudoku is. The problem I'm running into here is I set Sudokus when I have something that inspires me. I can't just sit down and set a Sudoku though.
You have to have a idea already hatched.
Yeah, so far I have come up with 2 Sudokus, and both of them had completely unique, as far as I know, unique rule sets. I should probably just sit down and set, I don't know, a killer Sudoku, a regular killer or a regular arrow Sudoku, and see how that works out for me. But, I just don't have ideas off the start for those. Especially because there's such well-trodden ground, ideas that I haven't seen before a million times better than what I could come up with.
The other thing that happened recently, and part of the reason why we were down a Kodra for a couple weeks, is you've been at GenCon.
I did go to GenCon again this year. That was 2 weeks ago now. And boy, GenCon is big and exciting. It was a really fun convention. It has eclipsed, I think, what anyone could have possibly imagined. We have fully taken over Lucas Oil Stadium now. We use every part of the Lucas Oil Stadium. The under the field is where True Dungeon is. On the field, there's a bunch of board games and stuff. There are RPG rooms in the boxes, I think. I don't think we use the stands. We haven't figured out how to properly utilize the stands for something gaming related. But yeah, I did a whole bunch of LARPs. I did one that I really had a lot of fun with, in which we were all playing as hobos. And the person who puts on this LARP is a history teacher, and so was really into the history of the hobo movement, and so brought in a lot of real life hobo regalia into the game, along with the mythos horror elements that were there. I did do some games with some people who, unbeknownst to me, are kind of affiliated with Level 99. I found this out when an announcement came out that they had done a Guilty Gear Strive Exceed pack, and so they had some demos that they handed out to all of the people in the game. It took place in Level 99's campaign setting, which I didn't realize existed, called Mystic Imperium, which is a very interesting campaign setting in which you're kind of post-apocalypse. All of these worlds have been locked away and turned into kaiju, and you're going and fighting the kaiju to unlock these worlds. But the convention is always kind of awe-inspiring in its scope.
Any really cool games that you saw this year?
So the big game of this year was Lorcana, which I did not get to deal with at all, and thankfully didn't get trampled because of just some frankly terrible decisions on many people's parts.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who were there trying to snatch it up so they could resell it. Shocking to no
I'm
one.
shocked.
They punched your badge, like hole punched your badge if you bought it. So people were going around trying to get unpunched badges that they could trade.
Oh my god.
Yeah. There were a couple of really cool games. There was a game, like, it was almost a tableau builder, kind of Splinter-esque, but you're like doing a fantasy, like coming up with the story of a adventurer. It was called Call to Adventure. I played through the demo of that. That was pretty cool. Let's see, I'm trying to remember other big board games. I did see the other big one was the Critical Role folks did a board game that looked interesting, like by order of the Queen or something like that. I spent way less time at the vendor hall here than I did at Origins, though. I had way more of it scheduled for myself at this one. The Paizo booth was very big and hopping. There's a lot of excitement there. It's really like Wizards has sort of stopped showing up at this show, which is always confusing to me. Like, you can play Dungeons and Dragons there, but like they don't have a booth or anything. I guess they're just big enough. They're bigger than GenCon, I guess, is their thought.
I mean, that's not really a good look, though.
No,
That
that's really
is odd.
confusing.
I mean, it was
really
the
had,
D&D convention.
They haven't had a booth there for a while, though. They mostly just they have an area dedicated to you can learn how to play D&D. But yeah, I think the stuff that I saw, like the call to adventure was probably the coolest board game I saw. Although there was a lot going on. There's a big focus right now, it seems like, in GM-less RPGs. I saw a lot of people trying to build GM-less RPGs.
It makes a lot of sense, because, that's always the problem, is, finding, there's the whole aftermarket of people who rent a GM for campaigns. So, I don't know, I can kind of see it, but at that point, aren't you kind of just talking about a board game?
Well, there's definitely a board game with more role playing in it, right?
Yeah, but Gloomhaven and stuff exists, so.
Well, now there's a Gloomhaven RPG. I did not get to play the Gloomhaven RPG. But yeah, there's definitely people who are trying to find a blurred line between board game and RPG.
Yeah.
I love that niche exists now, because I feel like there's a lot of people who would really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not necessarily what I want, I know a ton of people for whom it is exactly what they want.
But I know there's been products over the years that tried to do this thing.
I mean, D&D did solo modules back in the 80s. They were fine. I have a few of them.
I mean, choose your own adventure books were kind of this.
Yeah, and the fighting fantasy game books. I mean, that's basically a DM-less role-playing game. You have a character sheet, you're rolling dice, keeping track of hit points and inventory and stuff. Warlock of Firetop Mountain and all that.
Kind of like the old roll and write books.
Mm-hmm.
Those were kind of the solo RPG experience as well.
I vaguely remember something like this existing for Star Wars.
There was a roll and write series I did so much of back in the 90s, and the word Sommersword just hit my brain. But I remember that in the very second book you could get an item which was by far the most powerful item that you could get in any of the books, and if you didn't do that book, you were going to have a harder time.
It's almost like they wanted you to buy the whole series.
Lone Wolf. That's the...
Oh yeah, the Lone Wolf books. Yeah.
Yes.
They wanted you to buy the whole series.
Well, you definitely want to get the book with the Sommersword in it. I'm reading a wiki that says it's one of the most controversial items in the book because it had a negative effect on the overall difficulty of the game books. I concur. I don't know. It was really good to get back into a bunch of LARPs, though. And I miss Gen Con. I'm looking forward to next year. An aside that I thought was interesting, I saw, like, I've been going to Gen Con since 2007. I've only missed, like, 2 or 3 of them. And prior to this year, I had never seen anyone in a fursuit before. And I saw, like, 5 people in full fursuit, which I thought was cool. It definitely seems to be more of a, like, mainstream acceptable geek thing now.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like...
Or Gen Con is becoming seen as more accepting.
That too.
That's also possible.
Because I was going to say, I've been seeing fursuits since the, like, early 2000s at anime conventions.
Like, I would not be surprised at all if Gen Con was one of the more...
Anime and sci-fi conventions are kind of where they started.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, there were... God, I went to A-Con in, like, the early 2000s, and there were some people in fursuits, I'm pretty sure.
There are usually people at PAXs, too.
One of the things, like, there's a lot of overlap. Like, one of the largest... I know in Atlanta, one of the largest collections of board games is held by the Furry Weekend Atlanta organization. There's some overlap here.
Right.
Yeah.
That is saying something, because I know some of the board game collections in Atlanta.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, I would not be shocked at all to learn that Gen Con used to be one of the less welcoming conventions. That would not surprise me.
And it definitely was, like, it was extremely welcoming this time around. It felt really good.
That's good. Because, like, that has been traditionally the problem with places to play games like this. So we have Baldur's Gate on the page. I have not made it out of Act 1.
I have not started yet because it's been hard to find a good chunk of time. And that's the sort of game that I want to be able to sit down and play for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I still haven't finished Final Fantasy 16, and I refuse to start Baldur's Gate 3 until I've done so.
That's a good decision.
Yeah, I need to finish Far Cry 6, and I sure haven't, because Baldur's Gate 3 ate up all of my time.
I am playing Baldur's Gate 3, and then we'll play Final Fantasy 16. Or maybe I'll play Armored Core next. I don't know. There are too many good games this year.
There are too many games.
There are a lot of good games this year.
This is a year of really good games. Like, whew.
So I did roll credits on Baldur's Gate 3, and I feel like my non-spoilers comment is I appreciate how many good stopping points the game leaves you throughout the entire experience. Like, I have a tough, like, it is hard for me to fit a large game into my schedule, and that there are so many points where I could just be like, okay, this is a good stopping point. I'll come back. I'll pick this up again.
That's good.
It is, I mean, it's kind of the nature of CRPGs in some ways, but also just, I really appreciated it. It felt like they thought about that. And I have been absolutely stunned talking to other people who have been making their way through the game at how wildly divergent your game can be. Like, wow. You know, I've had conversations where somebody has described an entire, like, lengthy side quest, including a dungeon that I had no awareness of whatsoever.
Yeah.
And, like, it's not that it wasn't like I was beelining my way through the game. I finished every side quest that popped up in my quest log. And even there are parts where I was like, this feels like a significant decision that could have gone a variety of ways. How did we get here?
What is your character? What is your character that you are playing? Class.
Rogue.
The lockpicker.
I mean, yeah.
Rogue is good for so many things, but also yes.
Like, I mean,
to be fair, going into this game, there's nothing to tell you that, you are going to... It is usually required in most CRPGs for your main character to be good at most of the game.
Yeah, like I've played RPGs before. I've played everything BioWare has made. I know that I'm going to have a character that has the ability to get into places that are locked and talk to people. So yeah, I'm going to play a rogue. That's objectively the correct choice in so many of these. Is that it's actually not in this one for this. One of the only times this has ever been true, down to like you can have other party members have conversations for you, which is really interesting.
Okay, that's new and cool. Like I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that in the original Baldur's Gate, you could have Imoen pick the locks for you.
Yeah,
like you couldn't have somebody else talk for you.
Right.
Yeah, like
no,
rather than talk
you could
about
just say
anything,
like, "Hey, take this conversation."
Yeah, like rather than talking about anything that I'm doing in the game, like if you haven't played it and you've played a bunch of other similar RPGs, honestly, prepare to be kind of surprised and try things that you otherwise wouldn't. Because if you have a charismatic character and you have them selected when you talk to somebody or trigger a conversation, they're the one that handles it. And sometimes that's the correct choice.
They also might have different options that they can do because they're also a different class and different race.
And even like different character. Like there are a bunch of origin specific dialogue options, and you can see some of them if you have characters selected while you do conversations.
I mean, and also you can't do the traditional CRPG thing where you just ask everything, because eventually the dialogue is just going to end. Like, you better ask the questions you really want to know first.
Yeah, like things move forward, and there's not that many characters that will be patient enough to let you just pick their brain about everything they know.
And sometimes you're only allowed 5 questions. Very frequently, you're only allowed 5 questions.
Oh yeah, get yourself Speak with Animals and Speak with Dead as soon as you can, because genuinely hilarious.
Also detect thoughts.
I mean, there's an amulet you can get pretty easily that's got, Speak with the Dead on it. Put that on whoever you want to talk.
I have a lot of scrolls and potions of detect thoughts.
I mean, I feel like not having lots of entertaining Speak with Dead options would be a big miss after the D&D movie. So,
oh yeah, no, they have been paying attention to everything that's been going on in the space, and there are a lot of little call outs that I appreciated.
My favorite thing from this week is when I learned that all of the companions are in the Magic the Gathering Baldur's Gate set.
Oh, that was
There's
fun.
a card for every single one of them. In fact, there's lots of art that includes them.
It makes sense. But if you were going to have like a iconic set of characters, like this is a good set. They're good characters. Everybody has an arc. It's got great writing. And I can say, having gotten to the end, I can say that it sticks the landing.
I mean, endings are hard, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, endings are hard. I felt like it stuck the landing.
But also, boy, are there... I want to play this so many more times.
Yeah, it is a game that I have been fighting just starting again. And honestly, like, that is something that I almost never do. And 2 games this year have inspired me to try it. I don't think I'm going to play it 10 times the way I did Exocolonist.
There's a YouTube channel I follow that likes to review games after doing everything, like completing them 100%. He's been through the game 3 times.
They're just never going to review Baldur's Gate 3?
He's been through the game 3 times. Recently completed his Jack of all trades playthrough, which is to say 1 level of every class.
Woof.
And says he's still got a number of additional playthroughs to go before he can be done with this.
Yeah, I believe it. My other note, if you haven't played it, is wow, I just lost it. Cool. I had a whole thought. It was probably even a good... Oh, you don't need to know anything about the previous 2. Like,
yeah, because this is set in the current Forgotten Realms, which is like over 100 years later.
100 years later.
Like, there are references to the old games.
Some large ones. Admittedly.
Sometimes large ones, but they're not that important. They're certainly not going to...
They're cool if you get it, but not essential to know.
Yeah. And in the rare case where it's like, is that important, you'll have a character that will tell you about it in enough detail that it won't, you don't have to have played the game.
I was going to say, like, Minsk and Jaheira are both back, and both of them were there for all of it, and Jaheira is competent and ought to be willing to tell you whatever you need to know, I would think.
I don't know who you're talking about. I haven't met any of these characters yet.
But yeah, it's a good game. It's probably going to end up sitting with like Mass Effect for me. I'm definitely not nervous about releases in between this and Armored Core 6 or anything. Or what's the other thing that's coming out like imminently?
So right
Starfield.
after Armored Core 6 is Starfield.
I will say one thing that is challenging for me is, and this can be good or bad. 5e is maybe not my favorite system, and it kind of shows through in like just how little character customization there is. Like, there's not a lot of choices.
There basically isn't any.
Yes.
More than in earlier editions, but yeah.
Well, much less than in 3.5.
Which is the
more
version
than in
I started
second.
with.
Yeah, I mean, turns out I don't actually like 5e that much, and a huge part of the reason I don't like 5e is why a lot of other people do like 5e.
Mm-hmm.
But you only make two decisions on your character over your character's entire lifespan, and like, I have a really hard time not feeling like my characters in 5e are just like super generic. Because there's like nothing that I can do to make them feel like mine. I'm, human rogue, dragonborn paladin. Like, I legitimately feel like I have more character options in Gloomhaven.
I feel like part of 5e's success is definitely because of this, though. Like, it's not complicated to start a character at all.
It's true.
Yes.
Like, it's very easy to get into.
And most people don't play characters past roughly level 6.
Yeah.
I mean, the game falls apart after level 6. Let's be totally honest.
The fact that they managed to make a game that goes past level 6 and sort of, okay. I'm not going to comment on this game's balance after level 6, I guess.
It's fine.
Not that I think about it.
The game does a really good job of making the entire experience fun.
Yes. And they made a bunch of tweaks that you will not notice unless you know 5e very thoroughly to make things work better.
Yeah, I find that it helps that if you play on harder difficulties, you kind of do need to know 5e pretty well, but if you're playing on story, you don't. And you can just do cool stuff, and that feels good. Like, they do a good job of making the play experience. If you're playing on story, which if you're not a certain kind of person who really wants the like mechanically complex experience, like just play on story and you'll be fine.
You call me out.
I mean, it's a little slow already, even on story. So
you are not the only person who is being called out.
I don't play on story, but I don't play on hard.
No, I think I mean calling me out of being the other sort that certain sort of person.
Yeah, me too.
I want the crunch. Like I played Icewind Dale, which was like there is a story. That's not the point.
I mean, I enjoy the crunch of this game, especially like they have really well implemented a lot of the combat in 5e, which is interesting. Although, yes, your characters, once you hit like 5th or 6th level, your characters are hard to contain. Because it turns out Fireball's really powerful.
I mean, yes, once third level spells are available, things start to get silly.
My vote was going to be for Call Lightning, but yes.
Call Lightning.
Like Fireball, but you can do it every turn.
Oh yeah. Also the, things to do if you're just starting. Just if you're like me, you might have looked at the shove action and been like, what a worthless thing to do. No, try it. Just try it once and look at the little arc and be like, that's a big arc.
I mean, I'm sorry, that was your game that you were running in the very first session we knocked a dude out of an airship. Wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. You should know better.
Yes, but Thunderwave is its own thing, which it's still a thing, by the way, here. It still does the same thing. Use it. Abuse it.
It's very funny.
Normally, like the normal you can just push somebody action is way less good than that. Not here.
I mean, and the NPCs really like to crawl up on top of things.
Great place to be if you're a ranged attacker. Great place to be if you're a ranged attacker.
Yeah, I mean, you can't defeat them if they have the high ground.
That is, in fact, a power. It's like getting the high ground. It's very good for people who are looking to sneak attack.
It's a good game.
It's a very good game.
I'm glad to have good games, and I'm glad to have good games that have the other thing is that I have tried to get into a number of games that have like a feeling that they want to get across, and sometimes I'm like, I just don't need this darkness in my life at the moment, or whatever it is. Like Baldur's Gate 3 paints with a really broad emotional palette, and I love it for that. Like, I do need to sit back down with Final Fantasy 16 because I know it's good, but boy, the like grimdark fantasy feels heavy.
Yeah, and the protagonist starts off the game very angry.
Yeah,
he does get better, but it takes a bit.
Yeah, I need to get past that initial bit.
I mean, once you get to the point where the protagonist is slightly less angry, you might start getting angry at how awful everybody else is.
Yeah.
That's true.
Whereas, like, a game that can make me laugh loud enough to wake the baby completely unexpectedly wins points with me, other than the waking up the baby part.
I need to download and install the mod that lets you roam around the world like an MMO.
Oh, the WASD mod.
Yep. Because honestly, like, that was the hardest thing for me to get used to again, was controlling where WASD is the camera. Any other short topics?
Venba's really good. Should play it.
What's this?
Venba.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Venba is, I think I mentioned it on a previous show, but it's a big game about cooking and why cooking is important.
I like cooking. I might have to check this out.
You should play Venba. It's not long. It's like it's a pretty short game.
I have been too distracted by FF16 and Baldur's Gate 3 to actually play this game. But there is a game that looks like it came out on the PS1 called Pseudo Regalia that I really, really need to look more into.
Yeah, I need to look into this as well now.
It is a 3D platformer, sort of Metroidvania styled, fairly short, but it's also $6. So
it looks like it has a dash and jump.
It does have a dash and jump, among other things. It does seem to want you to believe movement is a very important thing you should be doing.
I believe movement is a very important thing I should be doing. So I agree with this game.
Talking my language.
You actually already sent it to.
Wow, that installed real fast.
Not a very big game.
Oh, my other small topic is I finally got to play Battlezone 2, a game that I had when it came out, but because it was not well optimized and required a level of computer that I, as a kid, could not even imagine having. And by the time I did, it was pretty out of date. I did finally get to play it, and it's pretty fun. Possibly I just have a weakness for hover tanks. I don't know.
Hover tanks are cool.
That's a reasonable thing to have a weakness for.
There's nothing I can say about Battlezone 2, which is on Steam as Battlezone Combat Commander, that I haven't already said about Battlezone 98. But like, it's playable now.
If you ever want a dumb driving game, there's a game out on Steam called Retrowave, which is hilarious and delightful. It is. I don't know if you remember the old Atari game Night Driver, where it was super rudimentary graphics of just driving down a road forever until you crashed. This is sort of that style of game, but it's like a vaporwave setting, and you essentially drive until you crash, and you're dodging oncoming traffic and, dodging other cars in your lane that are too slow that you want to get out of the way. You eventually, you get currency for however long you drove, and you can eventually customize the vehicle. It is like a $3 game. It is delightful. Well, any final thoughts?
Appears not.
Well, hopefully you enjoy the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you.